Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Omnichannel Marketer. This is Kate Stevens, and today I have Courtney Toll, founder and CEO of Nori. Courtney, it's so exciting to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and I've listened to a bunch of episodes, so really excited to share my take.
So excited to hear that. So Courtney, why don't you just start with a little bit about your background and how you came to found Nori?
Yeah, I definitely didn't grow up dreaming of founding an iron brand, but kind of a funny story. I actually had just started my career loosely working in a consulting position and was just really eager to make a strong first impression in the job. So I was living in this tiny, cramped New York apartment at the time, and would wake up in the morning wanting to iron my clothes, and I just didn't have the space in my apartment for an ironing board. I didn't have the time to deal with this inefficient leaky steamer from Bed & Bath & Beyond, and I definitely could afford repeat dry cleaning. So I would wake up in the morning and try just about every DIY hack, from steam in the shower, throwing it in a washing machine, using a hair straightener. And this really put a spotlight on what is this massive market, the ironing and steaming market, that has failed to see any innovation since the introduction of the steamer in the 1980s. So really looking at a lot of kind of the product market thesis of other product and brands, looking for markets that are dominated by legacy conglomerates, have really seen little innovation, and are largely living in big box distributors. This was a market that was really ripe for that innovation. So we spent a lot of time building what was our hero product, the Nori Press, this next generation innovative steam iron that introduces a totally new form factor to the clothing care space.
So, just describe to listeners who haven't experienced Nori, what does that look like? What is the innovation that you're providing in the category?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that we really wanted to do was introduce a way to remove wrinkles from your clothing that didn't require an ironing board. So our hero product, the Nori Press, like I said, is this handheld steam iron that's actually loosely inspired by the form factor of a hair straightener. So it has these two elongated arms that reach across your garment. They actually press both the front and back of your garment simultaneously because of the two heated plates. There's 6 fabric-specific heat settings, the optional use of steam. We ran about 500 customer discovery interviews before beginning product innovation, and therefore every component of this kind of anchor product has been totally inspired by consumer need.
And when did you ultimately launch Nori, and what was the channel that you chose to launch in?
Yeah, so we launched in May of 2021, which was really interesting. We were just sort of coming out of a lot of the heavy COVID lockdown. And funny enough, I was actually fundraising for this handheld steam iron during the heat of lockdown. So talking about the future of an iron while we were Zooming in our sweatpants. But we launched in May of 2021, and I think it was this really great time where people were eager to go out and about again, return to the office, travel. And we ended up launching direct to consumer. We were the first ever digitally native iron on the market, and we were able to totally introduce this new brand to a previously unbranded space. Nori is iron spelled backwards, so we're looking to really reinvent the way people think about this product that we hope they're using on a daily or weekly basis.
I did not realize that Nori was iron spelled backwards, but I love the play on that. And so, talk to me about, being a DTC brand in the time of, iOS14 changes, how that affected your business, how you think about the future of Nori and, where you'd like to go from there.
Yeah, so we entered the market at kind of an interesting time where there was a lot of changes around data privacy happening and affecting kind of the CPAs that brands were seeing. One thing that's really, really worked to our advantage is I think that this was a product that was totally born out of a personal pain point. And it turns out that that's a pain point that's experienced by a lot of people. So not only is this something that we can market with sort of the hook of the pain point of, do you hate your ironing board, or do you put off ironing, or have you tried a DIY hack like a hair straightener, that leads consumers to resonate with the solution really, really quickly. And on top of that, we have this super demonstrative product. It's an iron where you actually are watching the wrinkles disappear as you swipe a garment. So this leads to really successful UGC content that can be repurposed in a paid capacity. Nori has actually been somewhat of an anomaly. We've been profitable on first sales since the very first day of launch in terms of our paid acquisition efforts. And I think that as we think about expansion, we talk about our expansion within the context of the clothing care market, which is this really big but really fragmented market. Everything from irons and steamers to fabric shavers and sewing kits and hangers and hampers. And what we really wanted to do was understand, how can we take this anchor product and get to a point in which we're spending $5,000 a day on Meta Facebook advertising and see some really significant profit on every sale, and then take those same learnings into future innovative solutions in other product segments within this category.
So I've been, you shared your growth, talk to the listeners here about actual state of the business, what sales look like, and, how you're anticipating growing those in the future.
Yes, so we launched in May of 2021, solely direct to consumer, as I mentioned, and really leaning into paid acquisition efforts, as well as kind of a press effort that we could then repurpose in a paid capacity. We did 1.1 million in our first 7 months, so we really hit the ground running. And I think because of all the attention around, innovation in what is a super boring space, we started to have some retailers reach out. So we started launching with Nordstrom and Bloomingdale's, Williams-Sonoma, Crate & Barrel. That list is continuing to grow in the next few months, and also started to expand product with accessory products for the Nori press and another anchor product, our fabric shaver. We saw over 5x year-over-year growth and ended 2022 at about 5.1 million in gross revenue, and have begun operating profitably as of Q4 onwards.
Super impressed, excited to just hear how quickly you've been able to grow the brand, honestly, in a time that D2C has otherwise been extremely challenging. You mentioned a budget of $5,000 a day. How do you think about that budget? What are the different kind of guardrails? Where does that number come from?
Yeah, I think that it's not something that we got to overnight. We were starting at $200 to $300 a day in ad spend, but I think $5,000 is significant enough spend where there's a lot of room to scale and a lot of room to grow, but you're spending enough money that you're starting to understand, are your customer acquisition metrics sustainable? So, maybe you can afford to run the business at $300 a day in ad spend, but when you're really scaling this and putting some significant spend behind it, what's happening to your customer acquisition cost, and what does that mean for your actual contribution margin? So $5,000 was sort of this internal target that we landed on with our paid media partners to understand, when we get to this amount, what type of return on ad spend are we seeing? Is there room for even more scale? And what have we learned are the creatives that are really converting for this type of product, so that we have enough data to reinvest and hopefully scale that to, up to $20,000 a day in ad spend.
And so as you think about the different retail launches, I think you sell on Amazon as well. How do you think about, the current state of the channels that Nori sells through, as well as, what does that kind of the breakdown look like? And then what do you expect that to look like in the future?
Yeah, I think that we're in this quickly changing environment where solely D2C was something that's thought is really cool, I think, a few years ago, and now it's omni-channel or bust. So we were pretty dead set on getting this to become an omni-channel brand as soon as possible. Right now, direct-to-consumer and Amazon are definitely dwarfing those numbers. So direct-to-consumer is about 55% of our revenue split, Amazon somewhere around 40%, and wholesale's only about 5%. I think that really grounds the opportunity for Nori, because it's sort of saying, here is this wide-reaching way to reach customers that is everything from moving in store with our existing distributors that are currently dropship, to getting some big box partnerships, to even looking at hotel partnerships. We're currently in a few boutique hotels, but there's an iron in every hotel room, across the US. So there's a lot of ways to distribute this product that I think means exponential growth that will hopefully dwarf our D2C business over time.
Do you find that you, through your Amazon channel, see a similar customer or different than what you see through D2C?
Different, which is really interesting, and I think that that's the beauty of Amazon. Direct-to-consumer is a slightly younger audience. It's these kind of 24 to 36-year-olds that are often used to buying the Caraway pan, the Away suitcase, the Quip toothbrush rather. They sort of have this D2C buying behavior when they're trying to make a decision on a bigger personal investment. They often prioritize brand, and so Nori's been a good fit for that. Whereas Amazon tends to skew a little bit older. We find that these are more like 45 to 55-year-olds. Oftentimes they're buying for gifts. Amazon has this natural seasonality curve, which is where I think you see a lot of kind of the age range I mentioned shopping for younger individuals in their lives, other individuals in their lives, whatever that may be. But Amazon's been this incredible opportunity for us to reach a different group that has a really high purchase intent.
And what have you done to be successful on Amazon? Because it's a different beast.
Oh, it really is. Amazon launched for us in October 2022. And to give you a sense, we did over $1.8 million in revenue in about 75 days. So it really went from 0 to 100. It's this crazy journey that my co-founder could speak on too, because she's done a lot of the optimization on this channel specifically. But I think that the key with Amazon is to get enough traction out of the gate as soon as possible. So launching October was this really opportunistic time for us. There was Prime Day coming up, so we knew that there would be a lot of eyes on the site. One thing that's worked really well for us is identifying influencers that sort of cultivate this buying focused audience. So it's things like Amazon finds, or my sister made me buy this, or whatever that caption may be. But basically this is an influencer that cultivates this following where they're looking for them specifically for recommendations. And when we partnered with those sorts of influencers, we saw this really, really high return on investment. Often these partnerships were affiliate based, so it also took out some of the risk up front for us in handling these partnerships. And then also, to be fair, Nori was Oprah's Favorite Things, which launched in November, partially on Amazon. So that led a lot of eyes to the product. But again, I think it's meeting that demand with continued marketing, both on that influencer side I mentioned, but also within Amazon. So we are actively putting marketing dollars behind the listing and optimizing for certain key search terms.
And when you reference a influencer, is that, the influencers that we follow on Instagram that have a, set audience, or is it some sort of like a listicle that people are searching, best gifts, or like what exactly do you mean by influencer?
More the first. So these are actual influencers that you're following on Instagram that often have these like Amazon pages that they're curating. So they are leading their followers specifically to their Amazon page. We're sharing in the profits of whatever they sell. But the followers that they're speaking to are really looking for these recommendations. And again, we launched in Q4. Everyone's looking for what gift they should be buying, practical gifts, gifts for young professionals. And I think Nori really fit the bill for a lot of that narrative.
Okay. And so, now as retail becomes and, hotel becomes this, growing channel where you'll, have a lot less data at your fingertips than you do have in your D2C channel, which has, really been the bread and butter to date. How are you, one, going to think about making Nori successful in those channels? What are you doing to prepare yourself and support your retail channels? And, second question, what are your plans to bridge the gap, across all of these different channels that you sell through to give that consumer a consistent experience?
Yeah, so I think one thing that really works to our advantage is the fact that Nori is this heavily branded player in a really unbranded space. So the same way that if you just search iron on Amazon right now, you're going to see the same iron about 17 times over in 5 different shades of a boring blue. So Nori really, really looks and feels different. And that was something that was really important to us when creating this, because it's meant to not only surprise and delight when it arrives to a D2C consumer, but it's meant to jump off the shelves in store because it looks and feels so different. So some things that we're really prioritizing are things like in-store demos. One of the best things about going in store is that this is a product that's meant to be touched and felt and played with. And so when moving in stores, we're working on in-store demo opportunities, always having a sample out to touch and feel. And then also I think that in terms of trying to bridge the gap, we really are allowing our marketing efforts from D2C to bleed over to these new channels. I think that founders really have to get comfortable with the fact that these wholesale shoppers are still living online. And so speaking to them where you're already speaking to them, but giving the opportunity for them to go in store and touch and feel the product and then buy it there is okay to put some marketing dollars behind, because long term, I think that's really how you grow that business. Also, I think packaging is huge for us. Our package feels really different, but we're also going through a package redesign right now that's totally optimized for retail. Things like QR codes, which I know we've talked about quite a bit about, which, you know, brings your consumer back to your online experience, and then hopefully to try and retarget them with some of the accessory offerings that we're offering on our site. So buy your Nori in store, that's your first touch point, and then come back to the Nori site to buy your travel case or ironing water, so on and so forth.
And, you know, as you start to grow accessories and future products for Nori, you know, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, it's really exciting because, like I said, this is a really big category that just doesn't have a brand that's really touching all of these various product segments. So we think about product expansion kind of twofold. One is these really innovative new types of products that put a twist on whatever that product is. Without giving too much away, we're sort of rethinking a product that typically in your laundry room right now. It's higher AOV. That does really well for us because it's this sort of investment buy that we can market based on a lot of truly innovative features, and then hopefully have some significant contribution margin on the bottom line. And also there's this recurring revenue component, which is kind of the second part of our product development strategy, which is what are products that people can use on a recurring basis that either work alongside the Nori press, things like the ironing water that we already have on the market, or other liquid consumables that kind of enhance the performance of some of our anchor products that consumers can continually come back for.
Makes complete sense. So, you know, we talked a little bit before this call about, or this recording about, you know, feeling passionate about product market fit and what that looks like. Could you talk to me a little bit more about what that means to you and, you know, why you feel so passionately about it?
Yeah, I think one thing that we kind of briefly touched on is this fact that Nori has sort of defied the iOS 14.5 concern of all these direct-to-consumer and omni-channel brands. And I think when I speak with investors and other founders about why I think this happened, you know, we're not probably the smartest marketers of all the brands out there, but I think we just stumbled upon something that really works for the need. This is a pain point that I mentioned that people are consistently sort of familiar with, and so we don't have to reach too far to make the sale. This is a product that was designed based on a personal pain point and totally informed by all this customer discovery that we did to make sure that the weight and the size and the color and the branding is totally aligned with what our customer is prioritizing, where they're living, the use cases, so on and so forth. So I sort of assign so much of our success in marketing to just the fact that we stumbled upon a product that fits a need.
And what does that feel like? Like if you're founder of a product and you're, you know, iterating around your D2C, your omni-channel presence, like what does product market fit? Like how do you know if you've hit it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a few ways to go about it. One thing I think that sometimes founders run into that I was totally guilty of at first was like being really nervous when you have this idea to tell people, you know, that like maybe there's a IP around it that you want to protect, or you're just scared someone's going to get there first. But I think it's so important to really, really talk about what it is that you want to build before you ever bring it to market. And that's with a combination of a few groups, like obviously customers being first and foremost. I think talking with marketers is really important. What type of content do you think would work with this type of product? And can we potentially test a little bit, maybe to collect emails or have some type of opportunity in which you can test consumers' willingness to pay? Also investors. In our case, hardware is a really capital intensive industry. So before we ever launched, we raised $1.3 million, for better or for worse. But I think that it gave us a lot of opportunity to see if people were really willing to put their money where their mouth was and not only pay for this type of product, but support the creation of this type of product. So trying to build as many sort of validation points along the way before you ever bring a product to market, I think really helps to de-risk whatever it is that you're trying to market.
So I was talking to another founder earlier this week, and he said something around like omnichannel is not distribution, it's marketing. And, being everywhere your customer is. So I felt, before I even met you, I knew Nori the brand, and like it does. It kind of just, I'm like, I see that everywhere in my social media feed right now. But, as you grow your distribution channels, how do you think about the omni-channel touch points from a marketing perspective with your customer?
We live in such a content-heavy economy where you're just being fed so much content at the same time. And so I think one thing that we sort of accepted is that we just need to be hitting our consumer from every angle before we expect them to make a purchase. So we've really thought about our marketing stack as this sort of holistic opportunity where every aspect of our marketing stack should be feeding itself. So I mentioned press, for example. Like we've really put a full court press on press. And what's been so great with that is with any hits that we do get, all of that's being repurposed in a paid capacity. Same thing with any influencers that we're paying. We're always trying to get that content to repurpose and remarket. And then one thing that I think is pretty unique about Nori, and I mentioned this somewhat earlier, is this is a product that lives in a lot of different environments fairly naturally. So in a gym bathroom, you might see a Nori press sitting out that you can use to get ready before your day at work, or on a bachelorette. Maybe someone there has a Nori press that they brought and everyone in the group is using it. And so I think that there's ways that you can more directly attribute spend and return on ads to specific things that you're using to market, but it's also thinking about like how do we get the Nori press in the hands of people that are really going to have eyes on that, and that's as big as the biggest influencers to these smaller micro influencers that are just carrying it everywhere they go and telling their family and friends about it.
Makes complete sense. Okay, moving into our lightning round. What is your favorite omnichannel brand?
Our Place. I'm obsessed with my Our Place Always fan.
Thing that you wish you could change about our industry?
Cost to acquire the customer.
Yes, that's definitely, I think, one that a lot of people would love to change. Favorite podcast?
Female Founder World.
I think that they do an amazing job. Favorite newsletter?
Nick Sharma's. I read it every Sunday.
Yeah, his newsletter is awesome. Favorite social media channel?
TikTok, which is interesting because I think it's actually the hardest channel to nail from a paid standpoint, but if you can get it from an organic standpoint, I think it can be game-changing.
And is that a big channel for Nori?
We're trying to make it bigger. It's been tricky for us, full transparency, from a paid capacity, but I do think that the greatest thing about TikTok is just the eyes that you have there, and so really trying to get this product in as many hands of TikTok creators as possible, because I think it just comes down to testing and see what hits with the algorithm.
I am trying to learn TikTok personally. It's like it's not as natural to me, but it is an extremely entertaining platform.
Oh my gosh, I could scroll all day.
Favorite book?
I'm fundraising right now, so I would say Venture Deals by Brad Feldman.
Very tactical. Agree with that. And any events that you're excited about that you're planning to attend this year?
We were really excited to be featured on Forbes 30 Under 30 this year, and they do a summit. And I remember the lineup last year looked absolutely incredible. So hopefully we can attend that this year.
Oh, that will be amazing. And congrats on Forbes 30 Under 30. Courtney, thank you so much for your time. Where can our listeners connect with you?
Yeah, I list my email on my LinkedIn. I love when people reach out, potential founders or individuals that might want to work with Nori. I am always open for a chat.
Amazing. Thanks so much. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thanks for having me.
If you liked this podcast, follow me and the Bridge page on LinkedIn and Twitter for hot takes and tactical advice. If you really loved today's episode, we'd love a review on the podcasting platform of your choice, Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Thanks for listening.